Imagine a time when the very foundations of faith were being shaped in the shadows of ancient scrolls. Did you know that the Septuagint, a formidable translation of the Old Testament from Hebrew to Greek, has not only sparked heated debates, but also changed the course of religious history? This ancient book was feared by some, praised by others, but it undeniably opened the doors for understanding Scripture in ways that still resonate today. So, how did this translation become such a pivotal force in shaping beliefs across the Western world? Simply put, it bridged cultures, bringing sacred texts to those who could only dream of understanding them, igniting conversations that continue to this day. The creation of the Septuagint is steeped in a captivating blend of legend and historical intrigue. It's a narrative that stretches back to the 3rd century BCE, a time when the cross-cultural exchanges of the Hellenistic world were in full bloom, and the Library of Alexandria stood as a beacon of knowledge and scholarship. At the heart of this tale is Ptolemy II Philadelphus, the Greek ruler of Egypt who envisioned a library that would house every known work of literature, including the sacred Hebrew scriptures. This grand vision set the stage for one of ancient history's most fascinating translation endeavors. Tradition tells of an extraordinary event involving 72 scholars, often associated with the 12 tribes of Israel in association, that itself is shrouded in historical debate, considering the diminished prominence of these tribes by the 3rd century BCE due to prior conquests and dispersals. The story goes that these scholars were summoned to Alexandria to accomplish the formidable task of translating the Hebrew scriptures into Greek. They were said to have worked separately, and astonishingly, each produced identical translations of the texts. This remarkable concurrence was attributed to divine intervention, a testament to the sacredness of their work and the authenticity of the divine messages contained within the scriptures. This legendary account, though inspiring, is met with skepticism by modern scholarship. While the story serves to underscore the perceived sanctity and divine sanction of the Septuagint, historians emphasize that translation was likely a more gradual process, one that adapted over time to meet the linguistic and cultural needs of the growing Greek-speaking Jewish diaspora. Alexandria, a melting pot of cultures and languages, was the perfect crucible for such a project. Over time, rather than being a single miraculous event, the translation likely involved generations of scholars working collaboratively and progressively. Beyond the romanticized legend, the creation of the Septuagint had critical historical implications. The decision to produce a Greek version of the Hebrew scriptures was driven by practical needs. As more Jews settled in Hellenistic cities, particularly in Alexandria, many had become more comfortable speaking Greek than Hebrew. Thus, the Septuagint was not only a scholarly achievement, but also a cultural necessity, allowing Jewish communities to remain connected to their faith, traditions, and divine covenant. Despite its utility, the project was not without its challenges and controversies. Translating sacred texts is a complex undertaking, raising perennial concerns about loss of meaning and the dangers of misinterpretation. Each word carried theological significance and required careful consideration to preserve its original intent. The act of translating, then, was an act of fidelity, but also an opportunity for transformation, a dual edge that would later incite both reverence and opposition. Furthermore, the legend surrounding the translation can also be seen as a reflection of the intercultural tensions of the era. For Jewish communities, the production of the Septuagint represented both a moment of pride and a profound challenge. The widespread adoption of Greek culture and language threatened their identity, making the preservation of Hebrew scriptures in Greek doubly significant. Beyond Alexandria and its libraries, the Septuagint became a bridgier theological and cultural synthesis that echoed throughout the Mediterranean. While many Jewish leaders eventually distanced themselves from the Septuagint, citing perceived alterations and theological divergences, it remained a monumental work. The text not only preserved Hebrew scriptures for Hellenistic Jews, but also set the stage for its integration into the Christian canona transition that would have significant ripples across religious landscapes. This complex interplay of belief, language, and identity laid a foundation for the subsequent impact the Septuagint would have, which would profoundly shape interpretations of Scripture and the spiritual lives of countless individuals across generations. As the next chapter will elaborate, this ancient translation would navigate an intricate dynamic between two burgeoning faiths. While Jewish communities grappled with its implications, early Christians found in the Septuagint a tool to spread their emerging theological narratives. The reverberations of this work continue to be felt, its origins a testament to human endeavor under divine guidantia factor that is as much a subject of scholarly pursuit as it is of faith-driven reflection. In the context of Judaism and early Christianity, The Septuagint served as a bridge across cultures and ideologies, profoundly affecting each community in distinct ways. Initially, this ancient Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible enabled Greek-speaking Jews to retain their religious identity amidst the Hellenistic world's cultural dominance. It was more than just a translation. It signified a monumental shift in accessibility, offering a path to spiritual continuity for those far removed from their linguistic roots. For the Jewish diaspora, particularly those living in Alexandria and other Greek-speaking regions, the Septuagint was a lifeline. It preserved their rich theological heritage in a language that had become more natural to them than Hebrew, allowing them to engage with the texts in a more personal and immediate context. This adaptability helped Judaism maintain vibrant and responsive during a period of significant cultural evolution. The stories, prophecies, and laws central to Jewish identity could now be accessed by communities once linguistically out of reach. However, while the Septuagint's utility was clear, it sparked contention within Judaism. Many Jewish leaders and scholars began to distrust its translations, fearing that subtle shifts in language and interpretation could alter the sacred meanings of the scriptures. The Hebrew Bible's precise language imbued its narratives and commandments with multifaceted meanings, many of which they believed were lost or misrepresented in Greek. A vivid example was the translation of Isaiah 7:14, where the Hebrew word alma, meaning a young woman, was rendered as parthenos, meaning virgin, in Greek. This translation choice became a focal point of dispute, as it influenced theological perspectives significantly different from traditional Jewish interpretations. In contrast, early Christians eagerly embraced the Septuagint as their primary scriptural foundation. This divergence highlights a fascinating period of religious history where interpretations diverged, not just across cultural lines but theological ones as well. The Septuagint's Greek vernacular resonated with the Greco-Roman world, acting as a linguistic and cultural bridge that facilitated the spread of Christianity. It served as a fertile ground for theological development, enabling early Christians, many of whom were Gentiles, unfamiliar with Hebrew, to understand and expound upon Jewish prophecies concerning the Messiah. For early Christians, the Septuagint was not just a resource but a theologian's tool. It played a critical role in shaping Christian doctrines and theological arguments. Passages like Isaiah 7:14 were pivotal in Christian apologetics, reinforcing the belief in Jesus as the prophesied Messiah, born of a virgin. This usage of the Septuagint allowed Christianity to articulate its claims about Jesus in terms familiar and authoritative to both Jewish and Gentile converts. Moreover, the adoption of the Septuagint by Christians contributed to its gradual abandonment by Jewish scholars, who distanced themselves from what they perceived as a compromised text. This divergence played a significant role in the eventual development of separate religious identities. While there had been a shared scriptural heritage, the Septuagint's different interpretations paved divergent religious narratives, each evolving into distinct theological traditions. Despite the controversy it ignited, the impact of the Septuagint on Christianity and Judaism is undeniable. It underscored the possibilities and perils inherent in translating sacred texts, highlighting how such translations can reshape religious landscapes. Its existence opened dialogues between cultures and created a foundation for spiritual journeys distinct yet interconnected, deeply influencing theological reflections and the articulation of faith in both religions. Thus, the legacy of the Septuagint remains a testament to the dynamic history of religious texts, serving as a bridge in some instances while creating a divide in others. It emphasizes the power of words and the deep impact their interpretation holds in shaping the beliefs and practices of entire communities. This complexity continues to inspire discussion and debate, enriching the spiritual narratives of both Judaism and Christianity to this day. The Septuagint stands as a monumental bridge in the realm of ancient thought, facilitating an unprecedented cultural exchange between Jewish and Greek philosophies. In a world where these two distinct cultures intersected, figures like Philo of Alexandria found fertile ground for intellectual and spiritual synthesis. Philo, a Hellenistic Jewish philosopher, was incredibly influential in his attempts to harmonize Jewish scriptures with Greek philosophy, notably Platonism and Stoicism. Through the lens of the Septuagint, he saw Jewish wisdom not just as a distinct tradition, but as a foundational element capable of informing and enriching Greek philosophical thought. This amalgamation of cultural ideas was not without its challenges, particularly in the realm of language. The task of translating Hebrew scriptures into Greek was intricate, laden with linguistic hurdles that demanded translators make critical decisions over word choice and sentence structure. Hebrew, a language rich with idioms and unique expressions, posed a particular challenge when rendered into Greek, known for its precision and nuanced vocabulary. Translators grappled with these challenges, often opting to maintain Hebrew idioms in their Greek renditions, resulting in texts that carried a dual cultural identity. Such retention reflects a conscious acknowledgement of the theological significance of the original Hebrew, while also immersing Greek readers in Jewish modes of thought. The very structure of the Septuagint, with its inclusion of books not present in the traditional Hebrew canon, like the Wisdom of Solomon and Sirach, introduced novel elements that were both cultural and theological. The Wisdom of Solomon, for example, seamlessly integrates Jewish theological motifs with Hellenistic philosophical concepts. It speaks of wisdom personified, echoing Platonic ideals of divine forms, yet anchoring such notions firmly within the Jewish understanding of God's interaction with creation. These additional texts expanded the theological landscape and shaped the dialogues that would come to define early Christian and Jewish thought. The fact that the Septuagint served as a primary scriptural reference for early Christians further illustrates its role as a conduit for cultural and philosophical synthesis. Early Christian writers found in these texts prophecies and teachings that supported their burgeoning theological framework, particularly in understanding the life and work of Jesus Christ. This adaptation and reinterpretation were not mere acts of translation, but of profound engagement with the text, demonstrating an evolutionary dialogue between cultures. Moreover, the Septuagint also challenges modern perspectives on the nature of sacred texts and their interpretations. It invites contemporary readers to consider how cultural contexts influence the way scriptures are understood and conveyed. The fusion of Jewish and Greek thought within its pages serves as a historical reminder of the fluidity of interpretation and the richness that comes from such exchanges. It poses questions about the authority of what has been considered canonical, urging modern audiences to reflect on the dynamic nature of faith traditions. In examining the Septuagint, it is vital to appreciate the significant impact it had on theological discourse. It catalyzed discussions regarding the nature of God's wisdom, the role of prophecy, and the intersection of different worldviews. Its influence, therefore, transcends its immediate historical context, stretching into modernity, where such dialogues remain ever relevant. This translation was not only a document of its time, but a transformative work that reshaped understandings of identity, faith, and cultural belonging, bridging divides and fostering an environment of intellectual and spiritual exploration. As we delve further into its modern relevance, we continue to uncover the profound legacy of this exchange, recognizing its power to inform and challenge perceptions across millennia. The ongoing impact of the Septuagint is unmistakable, echoing through the fabric of religious and cultural discourse, even in the modern era. As a critical resource for understanding ancient Hebrew pronunciation and the development of the biblical canon, the Septuagint holds a unique place in theological studies, providing scholars and devotees with a multifaceted view of scriptural origins and the evolution of textual interpretation. In today's global landscape, where religious texts are constantly scrutinized and analyzed, the Septuagint serves as a focal point of comparison against the Hebrew texts. This comparison often sparks debates over scriptural interpretation and authority. Such conversations are crucial to understanding the dynamics between different religious traditions, notably Judaism and Christianity, as both faiths have been uniquely shaped by their interactions with and interpretations of the Septuagint. In academic circles, the Septuagint is revered not only for its historical importance but also for its linguistic contributions. The translation offers insights into ancient Hebrew pronunciation, a subject of great interest to linguists and historians alike. This connection provides a window into the past, revealing how language and faith intersected in a way that enriched both cultural and spiritual traditions. It shows how Greek thought and language became vessels for conveying Jewish theological ideas, illustrating a cultural exchange that expanded religious boundaries. Furthermore, the Septuagint exerts influence over the biblical canon's formation, with its additional texts that fall outside the Hebrew canon. These texts have introduced new theological elements and expanded the discussions around the Old Testament, influencing early Christian doctrine. The early Church Fathers found in the Septuagint a foundation for articulating Christian teachings and doctrines, as they identified prophetic references and foreshadowings of Christ that were less apparent in the Hebrew texts. Even beyond academic and theological discussions, the Septuagint holds relevance for personal faith and spirituality. Its narratives, stories, and moral teachings continue to inspire and guide believers seeking to understand the roots of their faith. The translation challenges readers to consider how cultures reinterpret sacred stories, and how such reinterpretations can lead to a deeper understanding of divine truths that transcend cultural and temporal boundaries. In the digital age, new forms of engagement with the Septuagint have arisen. Online platforms and discussion forums have enabled a revival of interest in ancient texts, allowing for a democratization of biblical scholarship that transcends geographical and institutional barriers. These platforms have emboldened laypeople to engage with the Septuagint, facilitating fresh interpretations and personal reflections that enrich individual spiritual journeys. Despite its controversies and the complex history it represents, the Septuagint remains a significant testament to the interactions between faith, language, and culture. It underscores the importance of dialogue in religious contexts, illustrating how different linguistic and cultural paradigms can merge into a richer and more inclusive understanding of divine wisdom. For contemporary believers and scholars, the Septuagint is not just a relic of the past, but a living document that continues to shape faith practices and cultural identities across the globe. In examining the Septuagint's modern relevance, it becomes clear that its influence extends beyond mere academic study. It invites engagement, questioning, and exploration. Whether one views it as a faithful translation or as a text bearing a distinct theological imprint, its value in today's world lies in its ability to bridge the ancient with the present, offering fresh insights into the timeless questions of faith and understanding. The Septuagint, therefore, stands as a monument to the enduring power of translation and interpretation in preserving the vibrancy of religious traditions. Its continued study promises to unveil new layers of meaning, fostering a deeper appreciation for the rich tapestry of history that underpins both Jewish and Christian faiths in the modern age. Through ongoing dialogue and study, the Septuagint remains a catalyst for spiritual enrichment and cultural understanding, echoing across time as both a historical treasure and a wellspring of spiritual insight.